Mr. Burton.
And we welcome you to the State House Conference Center. Good morning to you. And as I greet you, we also see the arrival of Her Excellency Mrs. Silvani Burton, DEH, and Mr. Burton for this ceremony here at
Please
the
remain
State House.
standing. We will now have the national anthem.
The first stanza of the national anthem of the Commonwealth of Dominica to start off the proceedings here at the State House Conference Center. An announcement to be made on the Sperm Whale Reserve.
President of the Commonwealth of Dominica, and Mr. Burton, Honorable Roland Roy, Acting Prime Minister and Minister of Agriculture, Fisheries, Blue and Green Economy, Ambassador Francine Barron, Chief Executive Officer of the Climate Resilient Execution Agency for Dominica, CREED, other Cabinet Ministers, Cabinet Secretary Ms. Karen Prevot, other Permanent Secretaries, Dr. Enric Sala from National Geographic, Ms. Christine Reckberger, CEO of Dynamic Planet, Mr. Shane Guru, founder of Dominica Sperm Whale Project, other representative of National Geographic, Preston Seas, members of the media, general public listening, and ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this Sperm Whale Reserve announcement press briefing. The government of Dominica pronounced its policy on the development of the blue economy. And for us in the Ministry of Agriculture, this means is putting the necessary programs and legislation in place to maximize the earnings from blue economy. And so in Dominica, what we have seen is that the ocean is basically twice the land space. And so our program is to see how best we maximize the use of the blue economy. And so pushing the blue economy agenda, one of the major components is the Sperm Whale Reserve. And for us, putting that Sperm Whale Reserve into action is first drafting of the appropriate legislative framework, which we have begun, and that has been in place through a task force that the Ministry of Agriculture, in partnership with CREED, the Ministry of Tourism, and National Geographic, we have been working in putting that legislation in place. And so a number of consultations has taken place, and we have come to see the fruition of a draft legislation and regulation. And so it brings me great pleasure to now announce the CEO of CREED to give you welcome remarks. Thank you very much.
Your Excellency, Mrs. Silvani Burton, President of the Commonwealth of Dominica, and Mr. Burton, Honorable Roland Roye, Acting Prime Minister and Minister for Agriculture, Fisheries, Blue and Green Economy, Honorable Cabinet members, Cabinet Secretary Ms. Karine Prevost, Ms. Denise Edwards, Financial Secretary, Acting Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Agriculture, Fisheries, Blue and Green Economy, Mr. Ryan Ansam, other permanent secretaries, Dr. Enric Sala, Explorer in Residence, National Geographic, Ms. Christine Rechberger, CEO of Dynamic Planet, Mr. Shane Gero, founder of the Dominica Sperm Whale Project, other representatives of National Geographic Pristine Seas and Dynamic Planet, members of the media, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. It is my privilege to welcome you to this brief but significant ceremony this morning to announce the creation of a sperm whale reserve in Dominica. This is very important to us because of Dominica's commitment to the preservation of life above and below water. We are very much aware of the negative impacts of climate change on our environment, on our lives and livelihoods. Dominica has been severely impacted in recent years by intense tropical storms and hurricanes that have been devastating to our economy, to our people, to our infrastructure, and the environment. We have been on a journey since 2015 to build back better, and we have committed to, and we are taking action to transform Dominica into the first climate resilient nation in the world. We have developed a resilience framework that includes not only ensuring the resilience of our institutional systems, physical structures, and economy, but also importantly speaks to the resilience of our ecosystems, such as increasing our healthy coral reef coverage, expansion of our protected forest areas, and sustainable agricultural practices. While we have sought to make ourselves more resilient and improve the lives of our people, we are also cognizant of our responsibility to protect the habitat and lives of the animals that inhabit both our land and marine space. Dominica has always had a strong commitment to the protection of our environment. And this is why people come to Dominica to experience our clean rivers, waterfalls, and lakes, to visit the world's second largest boiling lake, to hike in our rainforest and bathe in our hot sulfur baths, and snorkel and dive in some of the best sites in the world. We are very fortunate to have over 50 families of sperm whales who choose Dominica's waters as their home. We have lived in harmony with the whales for several decades and consider them as part of us. And they have also formed an important component of our tourism product. In our thrust to approach resilience in a holistic manner, we recognize the need to also ensure the resilience of our marine ecosystems, and in particular, to ensure the protection of the majestic sperm whales. We have been very pleased to partner with National Geographic Pristine Seas, Dynamic Planet, and the Dominica Sperm Whale Project in examining ways in which we can strengthen the protection of our whales. In that regard, I extend a special welcome to Dr. Enric Sala, Christine Rechberger, and Shane Gero, and their team, who have joined us today for this important announcement. We are committed to developing our blue economy in a responsible manner, and we are serious about the preservation of our environment. And this is why we stand in solidarity with the more than 100 countries who have pledged to have 30% of the Earth's land and ocean area as protected areas by 2030. Dominica is playing its part with the creation of this new protected area for the sperm whales, and we encourage others to do the same. We are very pleased for your presence here today, and I welcome you all once again. Thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador Barron. Creed has been the pioneer and pillar coordinating the Sperm Whale Reserve, and we thank Creed for pushing the effort. At this time, I want to call on Enrique Sala, founder of National Geographic Explorer, in residence in Preston Seas, to address us. Please make him welcome.
Madam President, Acting Prime Minister, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, it's a pleasure to be here today. We first got acquainted with Dominica when we met Ambassador Barron, then Foreign Minister of Dominica, at an ocean conference in Norway. It was impossible not to fall in love with the country based on her descriptions of the land and the ocean. After several discussions, we were invited, together with our partners, Dynamic Planet, to assess the health of the marine environment in Dominica, and also the potential for ocean conservation measures to enhance the development of the blue economy of the country. So we came here last year, November, December. We conducted a scientific expedition and produced a film that will premiere today, this afternoon at 6 p.m. at Emerald Movies. It's the global premiere of the film Dominica, the Nature Island. And then there will be screenings for the public, for schools on Wednesday at 2 p.m. and for the public in the evening, 3 screenings. And so when we were here assessing the health of the habitats from shallow to deep, and from inshore to offshore, and we talked with our friend Dr. Shane Guerro of the Sperm Whale Dominica project, who has been studying these whales for over 2 decades. And he let us know that this is a critically endangered population of whales. Right? Sperm whales globally are not critically endangered, but this is a population that lives only here and in the Eastern Caribbean. Just a few hundred whales. So it qualifies as the most endangered level within the red list of the International Conservation of Nature, the International Union of Conservation of Nature. So it is already in a critical shape, but also his studies show that the population has been declining over the last 20 years. So there is something to be done to preserve these, to restore this incredible and unique population that lives only here in these waters. Also, we were very impressed with the Dominica's plan and strategy for the climate resilience. This aim to be the first climate resilient nations in the world. And also we know that the sperm whales actually are part of the climate resilient machine of Dominica, because they help to sequester carbon in the deep ocean. So both the need to restore the population, to make sure that the more whales there are, the more carbon sequestration they can help, thus contributing to the climate resilience of Dominica. But also, this is one of the few places in the world where you can see and swim with sperm whales reliably throughout most of the year. So Dominica also has an opportunity to develop a world-class operation that brings, with lower volume of people, brings revenue that will help offset the cost that will actually, that reserve can pay for itself. The whales can pay for themselves. So this is why we are so excited and privileged and honored to be here today to listen to this important announcement. And just to give you a glimpse of the whales in their environment, if I may, I would like to screen a short video, which is a segment of the film that you will be able to see this week here in Dominica. Thank you. Dominica has something unique in its waters. A resident population of about 200 sperm whales.
We consider them to be citizens of Dominica. They're born, live, grow up in our waters. And that for us is very important.
I have been diving for 35 years, all over the world, from the Arctic to the tropics. And I had never experienced something like swimming with the sperm whales in Dominica. It was totally magical and spiritual. Sperm whales communicate among themselves using clicks, which are very loud. You can feel them in your bones when you're underwater. And this is the way they identify themselves, because they live in families, matrilineal families. This mother whale, like other whales, needs two things. She needs a place where food can be found reliably, and when she has her young, she needs a place that's relatively sheltered and protected so her babies are safe. And Dominica has them both throughout the year.
This island, it's full of mountains and valleys and so, and that's how it is underwater. So these sperm whales, the ones that are here, are unique to this island because these whales use these shores, the same valleys and mountains and so, to feed.
Sperm whales are the largest of the toothed whales. They are actually the largest top predator on the planet. To maintain these bodies, these giants dive to 800 or 1,000 meters deep for 45 minutes to hunt giant squid. And in between dives, they come back to the surface and rest. This is how sperm whales sleep. They have the shortest sleep cycle of any mammal on Earth, napping for about 15 minutes before descending again for another meal. We don't know yet why they sleep in these formations, but we do know sperm whales are part of the climate resilience machine of Dominica. Along with resting and breathing, when they come back to the surface, in between dives, they defecate. And whale poop is very rich in nutrients that fertilizes the shallow waters, which creates blooms of plankton, these microscopic plants that use sunlight to capture carbon dioxide from the water and release oxygen. When this plankton dies, it sinks to the bottom of the ocean, to the deep sea, with the carbon in it, which then becomes a carbon sink. The more whales in the ocean, the more they will be able to help us mitigate climate change. So a sperm whale reserve would be part of Dominica's climate resilience strategy. But the sperm whales of Dominica have been declining steadily over the last 20 years because of a combination of human threats that are not unique to Dominica. They affect sperm whales throughout the planet. Like ship strikes, noise, chemical pollution, entanglement with fishing gear, eating plastic. Currently, there are no shipping lanes to regulate the traffic of large vessels like cargo ships and cruise ships in Dominica's waters. And these vessels crisscross whale territory every single day, which increases the risk of ship strikes. And this is something that affects whales throughout the world.
We have a passion for these animals, you know. Seeing these animals growing up, a lot of times over the years we see the mothers give birth, so we know these whales personally. We need to try to protect these animals as much as possible. So we
I apologize, there was a technical glitch, and this is a real teaser because it will allow you to actually come to the film and see the real footage. Yes, because unfortunately, we could see only one small segment of fraction of what was on the screen. But yeah, if you join us for the screenings at Emerald Movies,
Okay. Thank you, Enrique. And I'm pleased to know that we have citizens that can add to our population with the wills. Before I call the Honorable Minister and Acting Prime Minister, I want to acknowledge the PS of Tourism that has been equal partner, the CEO of Discover Dominica Authority, the Office of the Prime Minister, the Maritime Unit, the Chief Fisheries Officer and his staff. They have been equal partners in the establishment of the Sperm Whale Reserve. So we want to acknowledge them of their efforts as well. At this time, I want to call the Honorable Minister and Acting Prime Minister. He's well placed in declaring the sperm whale. Honorable Minister and Acting Prime Minister, welcome to give the address and the announcement, please.
Thank you. My good friend Defoe would have loved to be there, but he's the blue economy expert. But unfortunately, he's out of state as well. And we'll be back sometime later this afternoon. Let me recognize Her Excellency, Sylvanie Burton, President of the Commonwealth of Dominica, and Mr. Burton, Cabinet Secretary, my colleague ministers for coming, Financial Secretary, PSEs, Dr. is Enric Sala, right, and Miss Christine Richberger, CEO of Creed, PS Acting, Ryan Anslem, that's the Venezuelan ambassador, right? Right. Good morning. Thank you for coming to this special moment today. So today we are going to declare the establishment of Dominica's first, well, the world's first sperm whale reserve. Dominica leading, of course, all the time. In 2019, the government of the Commonwealth of Dominica articulated its policy on the development of the blue economy for increasing prosperity and the health of human and natural environment through meaningful community participation to ensure that our development is properly adapted to the local environment or culture and economic circumstances. As part of our development agenda, we are seeking to pursue well-planned, highly productive, competitive, and innovative blue economy that promotes full and productive employment and equal access to economic resources and opportunities for meeting our target for agriculture sector to contribute $700 million to GDP by 2030 and a target of $132,000 stay over tourists per annum. Well, it should be 132,000 stay over tourists, not dollars, per annum. As a natural island of Dominica, we have in the past successfully protected our land resources with 22% of our forested area reserved to include the Mount Wapito National Park, World Heritage Site. As such, a critical component of our national economic development agenda include the holistic development of a sustainable ocean-based economy, what we refer to as the blue economy. By promoting the sustainable use of our marine resources, particularly its unique ecosystems and rich biodiversity, we will position Dominica as a country known for adopting healthy lifestyle in harmony with nature, promoting sustainable consumption and production patterns, and building resilience that reduces disaster risk and adapts to or mitigate climate change impacts. In the 2023-2024 annual budget address, government gave a firm commitment to establish the blue economy and to introduce appropriate legislation to govern national frameworks for the regenerative development of our marine resources, to include the, and I quote from the address, establishment of the world's first sperm whale reserve for sperm whale protection and a well-managed, sustainable operation with a low carbon footprint and high economic benefits in whale watching, water sports as diving and recreational fishing, marine research and education, marine and coastal resources, conservation, mariculture, photography, and film. Close quote. In Dominica, we are privileged to have over 50 sperm whale families living in the calm waters of our west coast as fellow citizens, living in matrilineal societies led by grandmothers and mothers. These enormous creatures spend time in our waters diving deep for squid, giving birth and raising their young. Through a partnership in marine research with National Geographic, Pristine Seas, we have learned that our sperm whale families speak their own language, a series of cliques that is passed on by the elders as they teach the young. But most important to us is that as nomadic marine mammals, the sperm whales have found a safe home and are considered permanent residents of Dominica. Unfortunately, across the oceans, from the busy US West Pacific coast to a remote island in Western Australia, the world's largest mammals are showing signs of distress. Records of mass die-offs, mysterious illnesses, and puzzling changes in behavior make it clear that whales need a lifeline. In recent years, our resident sperm whales have not been treated with the respect they deserve. With increasing maritime activities, they are often hit by ships, tangled in plastic garbage, and imperiled by other human threats and negatively impact their habitat. With rising ocean temperatures within the region, the increased intensity and the incidence of potential catastrophic climate-induced events can further reduce their numbers or result in their migration to the cooler ocean up in the north. In Dominica, there has been a documented decline from the period 2008 to 2009 of the number of sperm whale families. Our urgent and well-informed response is required now. We have been listening and have heard their cries for help. The renewed focus on protection, conservation, and sustainable use of living marine resources may appear a bit too late. However, it comes at a time when we have found ourselves on the frontier of the global impacts of climate change brought on from extra-regional activities that threaten the natural environment on an international scale. Following the catastrophic impact of Hurricane Maria on September 18, 2017, we proudly announced to the United Nations our vision of becoming the first climate-resilient nation, a bold approach as a small island development state to introduce new facets of nature conservation and climate change mitigation and adaptation consistent with our brand as the Nature Isle of Dominica. It is within this context that I present on behalf of the government and people of the Commonwealth of Dominica this declaration of our firm commitment to the establishment of a sanctuary for the protection of our resident sperm whale population in Dominica, the Dominica Sperm Whale Reserve, the first in the world. Dominica's Sperm Whale Reserve shall become the first marine protected area designed specifically to preserve the sperm whales, marine habitat critical for them to thrive in this pristine environment along the west coast of Dominica. By creating a safe haven for our sperm whales families, we are not only helping them and the ocean, we are contributing directly to improving and sustaining life below water, protecting our local economy and the benefits that extend to our local fishers, tour operators, and the people around the world while building resilience to the impacts of climate change. Developing as a safe haven for sperm whales will enable us to keep our tourism industry buoyant, bolstering one of our most important industries, ecotourism, with Dominica being one of the few places in the world where sperm whales can be reliably spotted on whale watching or swimming with the whales, adventure tours, without putting our natural environment and our other important industry, such as fisheries, at risk. Our sperm whale reserve will be developed to support our traditional fishing activities, from titiwi harvesting to sand net fishing along the coast for sprats and jacks, and deep sea fishing that does not require the reduction or dismantling of the sustainable use of fish aggregating devices to catch fish to support livelihoods, families, and visitors. It's our hope that through the Sperm Whale Reserve, we are able to create a new model of ecotourism that provides multiple benefits, both tangible and intangible, to a wide range of stakeholders, particularly in the tourism, transportation, and fisheries sectors. Recognizing that we are small island developing states with limited resources, we have the opportunity through this humble act of protecting the sperm whales that call Dominica home to have a profound regional and international impact, and to be able to now promote our image as a large ocean developing state. We thank all of our partners who have supported us in this endeavor, particularly Dr. Henrik Sala, National Geographic Pristine Seas, Christine Regenberg of Dynamic Planet and the team, and Shane Geru of the Dominica Sperm Whale Project. I hereby declare the official launch of this program for the establishment of the first sperm whale reserve in the world, as we encourage all of our citizens and all nations everywhere that have the honor and privilege to include whales as the bona fide citizens to join us in our commitment to protect our living marine resources before it's too late. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Minister and Acting Prime Minister. And this brings a closure to the declaration aspect. But now I will call on Ambassador Francine Baron to lead us into the question and answer segment of the agenda.
Thank you very much, P.S. Ansam. We'll just have a few minutes to allow the media to ask a few questions. We have with us available to answer questions the Minister, the Honorable Minister, also Dr. Henrik Sala from National Geographic Pristine Seas, Dr. Shane Gero from the Dominica Sperm Whale Project, and Christine Rechberger from the Dynamic Planet. So this is a new thing for Dominica and the world. So we want to give the press the opportunity to ask some questions to get more specifics about what Dominica is seeking to do. There's a question to Henrik Sala. So we have some questions from persons joining us online. The media joining us online. So to Dr. Henrik Sala, how significant are the carbon sequestration benefits of the whale reserve? There are three questions. Why haven't these benefits been addressed in climate discussions? And how will this change the importance of ocean protection targeting species? So those are three questions for you. You can pass it to me.
Oh, thank you. Okay, hello? Okay, I think that will help, thank you. So, can you hear me? Okay. Everybody thinks of the ocean as a victim of climate change, but actually it can be a solution. The ocean has absorbed 90% of the extra heat produced by humans since the first industrial revolution. Without the ocean capturing that heat, the temperature here would not be 1.5 degrees or 2 degrees Celsius, which is the threshold we don't want to exceed. it would be 36 degrees higher. So the ocean has prevented Earth from turning into Venus, into being inhabitable. But also marine life, also especially the microscopic plants and bacteria that live in the open ocean, absorb a quarter of our carbon emissions every year. And what we have come up to realize recently, thanks to research by Shane and colleagues, is that actually the whales, by going deep and capturing squid in the deep sea, digesting it and bringing back those nutrients to the surface in form of feces, that helped to fertilize the surface ocean and creating blooms of microscopic algae plankton, which they are plants, absorb CO2, carbon dioxide from the water and the air, and when they die, they sink into the deep ocean with the carbon in it. So this is something that we have realized only in the last few decades, and the whales are in an important mechanism that has not been accounted before just because we didn't know. There is so much we don't know about these whales. Probably this whale population here is the best studied in the world after 20 years of work by Shane and colleagues. But the whales now in Dominica, they sequester to the deep ocean an amount of carbon that is equivalent of taking 5,000 or 6,000 cars out of the road every year. And if the whales were able to restore their numbers, the more whales, the more carbon sequestration. So that's something that should be part of the accounting of the carbon budget of Dominica and every country that has whales, right? And how will this change the importance of ocean protection targeting species? It's very important because some protection has to deal with habitats. We need to protect areas that are important because of the seagrass beds or coral reefs. But in this case, it is a species that is important. By protecting the habitat where these species spend most of their time, also we are protecting every single species that live there. So these are umbrella species whose protection will benefit the entire ecosystem.
Thank you very much, Enric, for that. Your Excellency, I know you're very busy. If you're comfortable with staying to hear this is fine. If you, thank you very much, Excellency. Curtis Matthew, you have a question?
Yes, good morning to you. Good morning to everyone. My first question is, how will this sperm whale reserve be managed, and who will be engaged in its management? So that is one question. My other question would be, what is the size and location of the reserve, the sperm whale reserve? And how will Dominica benefit from it economically? So I'll ask that for now, and I will get a chance to come back in a short while.
Okay, you want to answer? Okay, you'll take the last one. Okay, right. Thank you very much, Curtis, for your question. The sperm whale reserve will be on the west coast of Dominica. It will be approximately 788 square kilometers, which is roughly about the size of Dominica. It will start from just below the Portsmouth area and come down to the south of Dominica. The intention is for there to be a corridor for the large ships, cruise and cargo ships to approach the port of Roseau, and that is expected to be approximately 3 nautical miles. And in the draft legislation that is being developed now, there will be a sperm whale reserve office created, which will be headed by a senior whale officer and will have also reserve rangers. A management plan for the reserve will be developed, and there will be certain protocols established in relation to how traffic navigates the reserve area. This is not expected to affect small boats. It's expected perhaps to only restrict boats of the size of about 60 feet. And the intention is to create an area that will provide or reduce the likelihood of the sperm whales being hit by a ship. It's also going to be good for our farmers as well, because usually they've had a challenge in the past where the large ships have dislodged their fish aggregating devices, the FADs. So this will reduce the likelihood of their FADs being destroyed by large ships as well. So this would be beneficial to our fishers. And it will also create a more structured way to engage in whale watching activities and swimming with the whale activities as well. So we want to ensure that everybody can enjoy that activity without the whales being harassed, and to ensure that our viewing of them does not create any discomfort for the whales. Minister, I think you Let me cover it. Okay. Thank you. I think there's a specific question to Christine Rechberger. And so you answer what you can of it. If not, we can always supplement. How much will the reserve cost? How will it be funded? And what impacts will this reserve have on the local economy?
Hello, everyone. Thank you for the question. As Ambassador Barron just mentioned, the implementation details are being finalized, but we know from conservation tourism around the world that well and effectively planned regulations, pricing, and reinvestment back into nature and any type of reserves can pay for themselves, which helps the animals as well as the local people that can benefit economically from the related tourism and, in this case, fishing industries.
Thank you very much, Christine. Just to let you know as well, the intention is also to create a special fund for the Sperm Whale Reserve, and that fund will receive income or contributions can be made to that fund, both from government, from philanthropic sources, and also from permits and licenses for the Sperm Whale Reserve. The intention is for the Sperm Whale Reserve to be self-sufficient and for it to be able to operate almost independently with no additional cost to the state. And we have also had preliminary discussions in relation to how we can increase the fees for engaging with the whales, bearing in mind that we do not want too many people engaging closely with the whales, so that it may affect affect them in their habitat. So you would want to reduce the number of persons who can actually go into the water with the whales, and that you have that at a higher price, so that you ensure that you do not affect the whales or force them to change their behavior or even to leave our waters. There are questions for Shane Gero. The question is, what is special about the sperm whales living in Dominica, and why are sperm whales so critical to protect?
Hello, my name is Shane Garrow, and I've had the great honor of working here in Dominica for the last 20 years with these amazing sperm whale families. The sperm whales live in small female-led families of about 7 animals, and all the families that speak the same dialect are part of a clan. And here in Dominica, most of the families are part of the Eastern Caribbean clan. And so having the local management work in tandem with the animals that live here, that spend most of their time broadcasting that they're from here, is a really critical part of this. You know, it's taking the nature island deep into below the high tide line. You know, these are animals that are very proud to be from the Eastern Caribbean. They have a sound that only the animals from here make that sounds like a click, 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 click. And that 1 + 1 + 3 is like saying, I am from Dominica, are you? And so it's really important to realize that while they live beside us and we don't get to see them very much, they're very proud of being from Dominica, just like many of you in this room. So I think that's why it's really important to look at this management from a local perspective and a regional perspective rather than at a global one. Because the sperm whales here, if they're lost, they can't be replaced from sperm whales elsewhere in the world, because those are sperm whales from elsewhere who do things differently, and their grandmother's grandmother doesn't know the best way to live here in Dominica. And that's why it's important to preserve here, especially. Thank you.
Okay. We have more questions for you, Shane. Sorry. Right. So the question is, the press release mentions 200 whales in the area now. What was the population when the surveys began 20 years ago?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's a little bit of the technicalities on how we do science. When you estimate a population's trajectory, it's based on the middle of when you have data from. And we're very lucky that we have data dating back, some even since the 1980s, where we've identified the same elder female across many years. Up until even this year, we saw those animals. So we say that here in the Eastern Caribbean, there's just under about 500 animals, of which half of those families we know spend a lot of time in Dominica, so it's around 200 animals. The decline that we've seen isn't a statistical one. We've known these individuals for many years now, and when the individuals are gone, when they disappear from their family, they're gone forever. This isn't an animal that might migrate or leave the area. The grandmothers and mothers and daughters will live together for life. And what we've documented is known individuals. To get specific, out of the 16 most commonly cited families, 12 of them have shown a decline. And that means adult females who are passing away and the calves aren't surviving to replace them. So in some sense, every calf counts, especially if it's a young female, because eventually she will take over leadership of her family.
Okay, and just 2 more questions, and perhaps yourself and Enric can perhaps weigh in on it. Do the studies show the sperm whale population residing mostly within the area that will be designated a reserve? And then the second question is, how often are the whales thought to be inside versus outside the reserve area?
That's a great question. So these are undoubtedly nomadic animals, and the families that prefer to be here off the island of Dominica do transit into other islands in the neighboring waters. So these are families that are moving in and out of the reserve across time. But our studies have shown that specific families show preferences to specific islands that we can't explain just with environmental variables. So there really are families that prefer and will spend large amounts of time in the reserve, families like Unit F or Unit A that many of the whale watch operators know about, and many of the clients on the Swim with the Whale tours come to meet individually because their family structures are out there and people are aware of it. So undoubtedly they're moving in between, but our studies have also shown, and part of the development of the marine protected area, the reserve, is designated based on where whale watches and our research have shown the whales are most likely to be when they're here in Dominica. So the area that's been designated has been designed specifically around where we know the whales are.
Thank you very much. This question is to the government from Agence France Presse, AFP. Any specifics can you share any specifics on maintaining the reserve? Sorry, on monitoring the reserve. Can you share any specifics on monitoring the reserve?
Thank you. I think you covered part of it earlier, Ambassador. But as you said, there'll be a special unit looking at that for the Fisheries Division. And of course, we're also going to establish what we call a Blue Economy Unit, which will be responsible for developing the blue economy in Dominica. So a part of that, working closely with fisheries, we'll have personnel assigned to managing and maintaining. But just to add more specific information on the location, if I may, the northern and southern boundaries are defined as follows. 15.581 north, that is south boundary, that's from Cabrit, south from Cabrit, and 15.2150 nautical miles, that is the tip of Scott said. The eastern boundary is defined by 2 nautical miles buffer from the shore. So that means there will be no interruption in ferry service. So it's not starting on the shoreline, but it starts 2 nautical miles in the sea. The western boundary is set at minus 61.67 degrees west and longitude 11.6. So that is 13.5 miles from the shore at the northwest corner and 17.4 miles, nautical miles from the shore at the southwest corner. So it's basically defined by these points. If we had the map, we could have presented. So we also have the corridor, the shipping corridor, which is 3 nautical miles wide to enter through the ports in Roseau. So you have that space of 3 nautical miles wide. Through the reserve, you can pass through to enter. There'll be no effect on transit of 70% of the vessels coming in and out of Dominica. For the remaining 30%, there's only a 2% effect, plus or minus, when it comes to distance to travel in. And there'll be no effect on the maritime traffic to Portsmouth because the boundary starts below, south of Cabritz, below the port. Okay, so based on that information, I hope you get a better understanding as to the location. So person that may have concern as to the interruption for shipping, there'll be little or no interruption because all that was considered while defining the area. Yeah?
Thank you very much, Minister. There is another question from Danny Cato from AFP again. When does the government expect to approve the legislation to create the reserve, and how long will it take to implement?
As was mentioned earlier, we have the draft. It's now with the Attorney General Chambers for review and comment. So once we have the final from them, we'll take it to Parliament for endorsement.
Thank you very much. There's a question from the audience.
Okay, good morning. You mentioned earlier in terms of traveling around the reserve area. Can you speak to any other restrictions that will exist in the area of the Sperm Whale Reserve? And will this affect tourism or any other activities such as whale watching?
Okay. Yes, it will affect tourism in a positive way because we are seeking to create a more organized way of operating within the tourism whale watching, whale swimming with the whales area. We want to ensure that with this legislation that there are clear protocols in place for how you approach the whales and how you leave the whales. It will deal with things, for example, if the whales are feeding, if their calves are feeding, that you should withdraw from them and how you should withdraw from them. So there are protocols in place to protect the whales, to ensure that they are not harassed, and to ensure that we can continue to enjoy our whale watching and swimming with the whales activity for many, many years to come. What you do not want is for whales to be harassed and then they find somewhere else to go to. So you want to ensure that they are comfortable so that they can enjoy being in our waters and we can enjoy viewing them in our waters. So it's all positive. It's not going to affect our fishers negatively. As I indicated before, it will actually be beneficial to them because it will reduce the possibilities of their fads being uprooted and damaged. So it has positive benefits for them as well. Okay. Sorry, Curtis?
Yes. My final question would be, in terms of economically, how will the sperm whale facility, how will that assist Dominica economically? Mm-hmm. And what about restrictions? We spoke earlier of restrictions. How will that affect tourism in Dominica in terms of whale watching and so on, and other activities for tourism?
Yes. Well, I think I dealt with that, but maybe if we can, perhaps let me try again. The intention is to ensure that we have a robust and structured way in interacting with the sperm whales. There are a number of operators who offer swim with the whales and whale watching activities. They have informal protocols in place in relation to how they conduct their activities. However, there is no legislative provisions to ensure that those protocols are followed and to have consequences if those protocols are not followed. This legislation is going to ensure that there is legislative teeth to protocols that are already being observed. We also want to make sure that you don't have people just saying, okay, well, I'm going to open up a whale watching activity and they're not properly licensed, they're not properly trained. This legislation would require persons to be properly educated and trained in how they should interact with the whales. And they would need to be certified by the ministry through the Sperm Whale Reserve Office. All that is geared to ensure that both the persons who are operating and the visitors who are viewing the whales will observe correct procedures. So for example, you're not supposed to feed the whales. You're not supposed to throw things into the water for the whales. If you see that the whales are showing signs of distress, then you must leave the area. Not too many people should approach the whales at the same time. So all these are measures that are designed to ensure that we can continue to have a whale watching industry for many, many years to come. So we protect the whales, but we also ensure that our activities are not going to impact negatively on the whales. If we do it properly, and that's the whole intention of creating the Sperm Whale Reserve and ensuring that proper legislation is in place so that people who violate the provisions can be prosecuted. So we want to ensure that that structure is in place to make sure that we can protect our sperm whales and continue to have that activity for our tourism industry. And we hope that activities or coverage of Dominica's oceans for coverage of what Dominica is doing to conserve its environment and to ensure that best practices are followed, and our commitment to maintaining a pristine environment, that coverage from organizations such as National Geographic, coverage from CBS 60 Minutes and other such coverage can demonstrate not only the beauty of Dominica, but the commitment of the government and people of Dominica to preserving our environment. As you know, the activities of others outside our borders are leading to climate change. They are leading to adverse impacts on our environment. Whilst we may not have control over what happens outside, we can take action within Dominica to preserve what we have. And so this is why the government of Dominica is taking this action now, so that this is just one more step in Dominica's commitment to preserve the environment. We have had marine protected areas now for decades. This is an additional marine protected area, and there's another area under consideration as well by the government, because we really are committed to ensuring that we play our part in preserving our environment and doing what we can to reduce the negative impacts of the activities of man on the environment and climate change. So if there are no other questions online, I have no indication that there are other questions, so thank you very much. That's the end of the Q&A session. So I will just invite the PS to just formally close and allow Her Excellency to depart.
Thank you, Ambassador Baron. Minister Kasane, I don't think you had a question. Okay, thank you. At this time, I want to bring this announcement, closing the announcement of the establishment of the reserve, the Sperm Whale Reserve, to an end. I want to take the opportunity to thank Her Excellency Sylvanie Burton and her husband, Mr. Burton. Thank you for coming. Your presence is valuable to us. The Honorable Minister of Agriculture, Fisheries, Blue and Green Economy, and also Acting Prime Minister, for your address and the government's commitments on establishing the Sperm Whale Reserve. Also want to thank the CEO of CRID, Francine Baron, and the team, Ministry of Tourism, Fisheries, Marine Unit, and all the partners, and National Geographic. We need to thank you very much for your work and the effort that you have put into establishing the sperm whale. And we can say that we are one step further, drafting the legislation, passing the legislation, and putting the unit together to monitor and to implement the Sperm Whale Reserve. So again, thank you very much, everyone. I also want to thank the ministers and the Cabinet Secretary and all the permanent secretaries for attending, and the Ministry of Agriculture staff, Dion, the Press Secretary, and everybody for assisting in the process. So again, we want to thank everybody for coming and participating in this announcement. We also want to thank the Ambassador for Venezuela for attending, and have a pleasant day. And this evening, we also want to invite you to the film. You just got a 6 minutes of it, but we want to invite you. We'll be presenting you with some refreshment. Popcorn is a movie, so feel free. It's happening at 6 at the Rosa Privy Mall movie, so Emerald Movies. So we invite you to come to this spectacular movie. So again, thank you very much. And now we will allow Her Excellency to depart. And so thank you very much. Can we stand to allow the Excellency to depart?
So that's where we come to the end of this outside broadcast. We see now the departure of Her Excellency, the President of Dominica, Silvani Burton, DAH, and her husband, Mr. Burton. So we have just ended this outside broadcast at the State House Conference Center. We just had the announcement of a sperm whale reserve in Dominica, and the announcement of the creation of this reserve means that it will be the first of its kind in the world, so a very significant move for Dominica. Dominica, of course, examining ways in which it can strengthen the protection of its whales, and we learned that Dominica has a resident population of about 200 sperm whales and over 50 families of sperm whales as well. So that is very, very significant for the development of this sperm whale reserve, and the reserve will really be on the west coast. So this will be on the west coast, and to put Dominica's climate resilience strategy, in proper context, to strengthen it more so. And so this really forms an important component of Dominica's tourism product. And you'll have to understand as well that there is something really unique about Dominica where sperm whales are concerned, when you consider that we have a resident population of about 200 sperm whales. So a very short ceremony, but very, very significant as well. We heard from the Ambassador Francine Baron, Chief Executive Officer of the Climate Resilience Execution Agency for Dominica, CRID. We also had brief remarks from Enrique Salah, who is the founder of the National Geographic Explorer in Residence and Pristine Seas. And then we heard from the Honorable Roland Royer, Minister for Agriculture, Fisheries, Blue and Green Economy, and he's also the acting Prime Minister of Dominica. So that's where we come to the end of this. The chairperson, of course, was Mr. Ryan Anselm, the Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Agriculture, Fisheries, Blue and Green Economy. So the announcement of a sperm whale reserve in Dominica. And let me take you back now to Studio 1, the Ted Dilly studio, for continued programming.